Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing. I am Blair Malloy, and I am your host for this morning, stepping in for Derek Clark. I'm glad to say that I'm joined this morning by Chris, Jack, and Stevie Clifford of Four Lads Had a Dream. Stevie, if we come to you first, how are you getting on this fine Thursday, a Rangers Thursday, as it were? I know it doesn't quite have the same ring to it, given the exploits in Europe this season. But yeah, Rangers are playing this evening, and there's always a little bit of an extra excitement on a day when Rangers are taking to the field.
Am I not Stevie Clifford of the Rangers Review as well? Because I have
you're also of the Rangers Review, if you want, yes.
for years and years, Blair. So yeah, and it's. I wonder if the viewers wonder why you're coming to me first and not the esteemed Chris Jack. Is it because Chris is working on something? Well,
we may have a little bit of a surprise in about 30 seconds.
Yes, but on that note, yes, good morning, mate. It's good to be here as ever. European Day. Listen, we could still win the Europa League. So let's just go and win 8-0 tonight and everything's possible. You know what I mean? So let's keep the spirits up, as they say.
I'm a big fan of that optimism on a Thursday morning. That's what we all need. And of course, as I mentioned a minute ago, and as we teased, we are joined by Chris Jack, transfer guru. Chris Jack, the man who is the busiest man in journalism in this January transfer window. And I believe you have some breaking news for us, Chris, for all of the viewers watching along live.
Just talk amongst yourselves for another 30 seconds. No, I will. I can't actually come to you now. Kieran Dowell is set to sign for Hull City. He'll be the latest one to depart. In fact, before I get onto that, morning to you both. That was entirely unprofessional of me to jump into. So I hope you're both doing well. But no, Kieran Dowell is set to depart. He'll move on loan until the end of the season and then sign for them as a free agent on the expiry of his Rangers contract. I'm sure there'll be an outpouring of emotion in the comments now that we've broken that news, and you guys can give us your favourite Kieran Dowell moments over the remaining 27 minutes of the show. Don't take up all 27 minutes.
My favourite Kieran Dowell moment is the last 30 seconds when you described that news to us. So, but look, in all seriousness, hard-working lad, never an issue with him, very professional around the club and everything else, just simply not what we needed at the time. So all, joking aside, he came on Friday night against Annan, did a really professional job, scored a goal, did his job, helped us progress the next round of the Cup. He's been nothing but professional when he's been here with us, always gave his all. He just simply maybe was in the wrong movie for the type of player he was. So no criticism of him. I know we all have a laugh and a joke, and that's all it is. But wish him all the best. And yeah, good on him, and hope he goes down there and does really well. But I am not sorry that he's no longer with Rangers, because, and that's not a personal dig or anything, it's just that we as a football club need to get people out that are no longer contributing. He wasn't. And no fault of his own or whatever, he just didn't fit. And now it's time for us as a football club to make sure that we are getting people in that can affect the squad, and Kieran Dowell couldn't. So best of luck to him. Good breaking news as ever, Chris. I'm promptly going to steal this as well on social media, but I will credit you because I'm that type of guy.
Okay, Steve, I'll let you get to your tweeting.
I think just to
get that news out everywhere. Gaz here shares your sentiment. Stevie Dowell just wasn't what we needed. All the best to the lad in the future, and I think that's something that most Rangers fans will share. I don't think there's any ill feeling towards a guy like Kieran Dowell, but I just think it's one of those ones, like you said, Stevie, it didn't work out. It just didn't work out from day one. It didn't seem like he was going to make his mark as a Rangers player. I remember going to his very first press conference, and he talked really well. He spoke about how he wanted to be an attacking midfielder, how he wanted to take shots on from outside the box, all that sort of thing, but it didn't really materialise like that, Chris. And as a player that, although he did have a good reputation as a youngster down in England, when he came up here, I just don't think we ever seen the best of Kieran Dowell, and I'm struggling to remember any real games where he managed to put his mark on it.
I would echo what Stevie says. I know we'll have I had to make a joke about it there, but I don't think he's ever been an issue round about Rangers. There's never been any stories coming out about his professionalism, about even when he's not been in the team, and when he has been quite far out the picture under under different managers at different times. There's never been anything to suggest that he's been anything other than a good, solid professional and a worthwhile part of the squad. He became a real talking point at the start of the season because Russell Martin relied on him and he spoke him up, and he had him in the ill-fated leadership group at that team. Ultimately, Kieran Dowell is just not Rangers level right now. You look at the moves that they are making, the money that they've spent. When you're in the market and you can sign someone like Andrew Skov-Olsen and you can put the finance towards that, guys like Kieran Dowell are always going to drop off the bottom end of the squad. I think technically he's got some good qualities. Are they qualities that we need in a Rangers midfield? No, but I expect him to go down to Hull. He's had a decent career. He'll go down to Hull and he'll do well there in the second half of the season. I say he'll sign on there in the summer. We expect, and I think he'll go on and he'll have a more than decent. What's left of his career? Only 28. Still got a lot of football to be played. He'll be able to bounce around the English lower leagues quite happily, making a good living for himself. He will impress some fans. He just never really impressed the Rangers fans, or did he? And ultimately, Rangers need and Rangers have better. But from a club perspective, I think it's a good bit of business. It's another one out the door. We've also spoken about Finlay Curtis, spoke about Lyle Cameron, some of the other players that could be allowed to leave. So it's another one ticked off from a Rangers perspective, and we'll see what the next week or so brings us. As Danny Rowe teased in his presser yesterday, the last 7 to 10 days, anything can happen.
Chris, you're stealing all my points in one go there. I'm trying to spread it out over the half hour. But we appreciate you with the breaking news as always. And of course, the first place to get all your Rangers breaking news here on the Rangers Review pod. We'll go to Stevie next. If we move on a little bit to a piece that you had on the website today, it was your opinion column. I read that this morning, Stevie. A very good read for anyone that wants to go and have a look at it. Stevie, you touch on this sort of good feeling that is building amongst the Rangers players, amongst the Rangers backroom staff, or amongst the Rangers support. There really is a sort of a momentum building right now, but it's key that in this next week or so, until the transfer window closes, Rangers still have to be brave. Rangers still have to see this as an opportunity. They have to see this title as there for the winning. And don't get me wrong, I think every Rangers fan will say that the business so far has proven bravery from Andrew Kavanagh. It has proven ambition, but you wanted to see them continue to go in this vein between now and the end of the window.
So here's the thing. First of all, thanks for the kind words. I thought it was an excellent article. I always do. I've learned from the very best. So, something like that. So here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to sound not to be ungrateful. We have done a terrific job so far, but see if we don't sign anybody else and we don't win the league, every single one of us will say it's because we weren't brave enough in January. We do need a forward. We do need another midfielder. Can we get by with the centre-back positions? That's debatable because I think there's huge question marks over one or two of them. John Souttar looks really good. Fernandes is growing. Giga, not so much. Sterling isn't reliable. So, there's an argument there. Absolutely. See, to really get over the line, Blair, Skov-Olsen might be a magnificent signing, and I really hope he will be, and I really kind of believe he will be. But we still need something else. We're still light of a guy that can bang in 15 goals, and until that changes, or until somebody shows that can change, that's the way I feel about it. So, with regard to the article this morning, what I said was right. We've asked Danny Rowe to sort this squad out, and in fairness to him, he has. We asked the players to respond. In fairness to them, they have. We asked the chairman and the club to go and be brave in January and spend money, and they have. It's up to us now as a fan base, I think, to galvanise behind the team. They need the support. They need everyone pulling in the same direction, and that's where I am with it. We're right in a title race, whether we like to admit it or not. And I don't, because I don't like to tempt fate and stuff like that. But we're far stronger if we're all together. And I just feel like if we all push together, we will be. And that wee bit of bravery that we've had and we've shown as a collective. I think we need to show again, not only as a fan base, but also Andrew Kavanagh in this boardroom. If we can get one or two, that might be the difference, Blair. And I look over at Hearts at the moment and they've got a lot of injury issues to key players, which was always going to happen because it does happen and they need to overcome that. It's going to be interesting because I don't think Hearts will maybe fall away as people think, but it's going to be interesting to see how they react. We know that there's been problems as well with Celtic. You would expect them to get over that and kind of calm down, especially under O'Neill, and to have a stability. But they don't all of a sudden become unbeatable and things like that. It's still the same players. It's still the same group. Rangers have an opportunity here to continue that goodwill and continue that feeling of kind of togetherness and bravery if they can just go and keep winning games. And, you know, tonight becomes important because it's all about momentum. It's all about performance. It's not about the points or anything like that because that's maybe went past us. But with regards to what it means for Rangers as a team at the moment, this game tonight is massively important. So it's a collective thing, one game at a time. But it requires everybody in it. We asked for the club to go and do certain things, and they have. And there's a real togetherness. And I've not felt it in a while. Chris might be able to comment on this. It feels different in the away end. It feels different in the stands. It feels different amongst the club now. That we're all pulling towards one thing. And the good thing about it is there's nobody shouting about titles. There's nobody shouting about winning things. Everybody's just saying it's going well. Let's get behind them one game at a time. And I think that's a really sensible way to be.
Yeah, there certainly does feel... Chris, go fire away.
Sorry, I think Stevie's spot on there. I think there is a belief that Rangers can go on and win this title, but I don't think that real pressure has started to build on them yet. As myself and Stevie spoke about on the talking point at the weekend there, I think the fans are starting to get a bit more faith in this team. I think they've got a lot of faith in Danny Rule as head coach, but would you class Rangers as favourites for the title right now? I don't think so, and I think that actually helps this team because there's not that real spotlight, that real pressure on them to say you have to go and win this. We would like to win it, of course. We think we can win it. At this stage, Rangers clearly have a chance of going on to win the title, but it might be another 6, 7, 8 weeks down the line before that expectation of Rangers should win it really comes on, and that's in a different situation for the manager and the players and the support. But until you get to that stage, it's just about the feel-good factor and the momentum. So a win tonight would keep that ticking over. Would be nice. You then go into the weekend, take care of your own business, and you worry about what happens elsewhere once you've done that. I think that's a nice position for the manager and the squad to be in right now. They know if they keep doing their job and keep doing what they need to do, the situation will unfold in a positive way for them.
Yeah, it's a very interesting position that Danny Rule finds himself in, and it's a very positive place to be, Rangers, right now. And like you said, I agree with you both that Hearts really are taking the brunt of this pressure because they've led the pack for most of the way, and then you've also got Celtic across the city looking to defend their title, and the way in which they went about their transfer business and the unrest of fans is really piling on the pressure over there, whereas Rangers are just, and as this is a point that Stevie made in that article this morning, it is just a quietly going about their business, quietly building, and just, as I said in a piece I wrote during the week, to use a horse racing analogy, they've sat in the pack, not really by their own, not really meaning to, but because of their own inadequacies a lot of the time. They've sat in the pack and they've just waited. And now Danny Rule, like an expert jockey, he's got them in position. He's just moving up the rail and just waiting for that title charge. And he's got them in a position where when the final few furlongs come into stretch, then he can actually make a go of this. I get too excited by that breaking news this morning, and Jim has reminded me, breaking news, Willows Fencing, of course. They are the sponsor for our podcast this morning, the Glasgow-based fencing company you can trust. If you want 10% off, there is the link in the bio, link in the description, and use your code to get 10% off with Willows Fencing. Danny Rule spoke yesterday, Chris. You were there. He as you touched on earlier, he did tease this a little bit about the transfer window, a little bit about whether there will be any more incomings and outgoings. I've got a few of his words here I'll bring up on the screen. Now we will see in the next 7 to 10 days. I think there will be some movements in and out, but we know to cut. But now we come a little bit to the crunch time in the transfer window, and then it's really about timing. Sometimes you have to be a little bit patient. And I thought his words here were very interesting, Chris, when he says it's the crunch time of this transfer window. That suggests to me that he is far from ready to be done. That suggests to me that he's far from ready to be finished with his January business. I think he's looking at this next week and going, this could be vitally important for how our next 6 months looks.
I think those comments feed into a piece that we had on the site at the start of the week, with a bit of insight into where Rangers are and the business that they've done and the business that they could done. And in that piece that we had, we kind of laid out that Rangers are not done. They have not put up the close for business signs. That doesn't mean to say that we'll have thankfully I've not had a week like last week that was as hectic with 3 guys coming in, but they are still active in the market, and it's now a case of seeing what's out there in those last couple of days and having a wee look. The squads will change, futures will change, positions will change all very, very quickly over this next week or so, both at Ibrox and right across the game. There will be opportunities there for Rangers. A player who last week may not have been available could suddenly become available on loan. A player who thought, I'm going to be here for the rest of the season, might suddenly find that there's a new addition in his position, thinks, actually, I don't fancy this anymore, tells his agent to get him out of there, and that then opens the door for Rangers. So the work that they've done so far with the 3 players coming in, that's been really, really important. That's addressed the 3 key areas that we all spoke about, that we all know and knew that this squad needed strengthening in. Now it's a case of let's just see what's out there, and that's a nice position to be in. Other clubs, certainly across the city, they are scrambling a wee bit. They're still trying to get players in to address weaknesses. Rangers have done that. The guys one of them has played. A couple of them have trained. Romans will continue to be stepped up in terms of his involvement with the first team. But Rangers have done 3 really good bits of business there, and it's now what can we do on top of that. So I think those comments from the manager really feed into that piece that we had at the start of the week, and very much gearing up for what could be a busier last week of this window.
Stevie, I'll go to a couple of comments just before I come to you. A few in the comments saying what they would like from the last week of this transfer window. One here saying Kieran Dowell would be a better player in a better team if he, of course, came to Rangers. Shout for Joe Aribo, I would have him back. He was a fantastic player. And Alan here saying he wants Joe Pirro and Dowell in the door. Of course, Pirro linked with that ridiculous move to Celtic. I don't know why that would ever take place. That was a bit of a good laugh on an afternoon earlier in the week. But Stevie, if I could give you one position to strengthen between now and the end of the window, where do you feel it's most vital? If you could have one more, where Rangers should go again this window?
Forward, I think. And here's the thing, and the only reason I say that, could we get a central defender in? I've commented on it. You would rely on Suter, Sterling, Fernandes, and Giga to back that up. That's 4 there. Could you get by with that? You should get by, Blair. That's the thing. So in midfield, you've got Chukwani, you've got Diamande, you've got Nico Raskin. You know, there's a few that can fill in there. Could you get by with that? Maybe. Then you look up top. What's been the issue all season for Rangers has been the final third. We haven't scored enough goals. We haven't engineered enough chances. So could we get a forward in that's going to do that? A forward striker type, then yeah. I don't want a guy that's come in and scored 10 goals in 4 years either. I want a guy and that's going to be difficult, right? I absolutely get it. But I want a guy that's going to come in and be able to hit the ground running. And that's where I think the difference is for Rangers. All of a sudden, if you chuck him up top next to Gassama, next to Skov Olsen, and you can maybe have him playing where Miovski is and stuff like that, right? Look, let's call it as we call it. Danilo's been playing there behind a striker. What if we could get somebody in there that could partner and let Danilo go up top, let Miovski go up top, let Chermiti play up top? And that's the thing. Chermiti might have scored a couple of goals at Parkhead and they were wonderful moments, but he still missed at Pataudry and he still missed at other big moments and he doesn't score enough goals. That doesn't mean he's not an all-round good player. He just doesn't score enough goals. Bojan Miovski scores enough goals but doesn't get any chances created for him and has struggled a wee bit at Rangers. Do we need somebody else up front? I think yes. And I think that's where it becomes really critical. And every team in the world's looking for somebody to score 20 goals. I get that. But that could be the difference between winning the title and not. Because I still think at this moment in time, when we go our final third, we look a bit short. And yes, that may change with Skov Olsen. I totally get that. So that there's a caveat to that there slightly. But I genuinely feel like we need somebody to put the ball in the net. And that's where the biggest concern is for me. If you get that, you can negate the other stuff. Because if Rangers are 2 up in a game, the defence doesn't feel as vulnerable. They don't act as shakily. They don't, the midfield don't get as bogged down. Things are different. If you can take your chances and create more chances and things, then that's what I really think we need to do, Chris.
Just quickly on that, Stevie, to throw it back to you. Is Maswiniste the answer?
He's a player that I really like. He's got shades of Fashion Sakala about him, that unpredictable live wire kind of spark, a good finisher. Is he the answer? Sometimes, Blair, the answer's the most obvious one, but not perhaps the most attractive one, if that makes sense, because everybody's looking for this big striker, this big fancy striker coming, this big name. Maybe he's right there, 20 miles down the road. So I wouldn't be adverse to that at all. As I said, I think he's the spark. I think he's a live wire. I think he's got a bit of the kind of Fashion Sakala energy about him that I like, that we maybe don't have. He's maybe not as unpredictable as Fashion Sakala was, but I think that if you can put that into the mix along with others, then yeah, perhaps. What I would say is he the answer? It's difficult. I mean, even if you said to me a really standard name, I'd still be cautious. But I think to answer it differently, is he a player you would like to sign, Stevie? The answer is yes. I really like him, and I think he's well worth a look at.
Absolutely. Moving on a little bit, Chris, back to that press conference yesterday. Danny Rule, he provided a triple injury update. Jones Suter is unfortunately out for a couple of weeks. However, Dujon Sterling and Derek Cornelius are both back on the grass for Rangers. It seems to be the very nature of this season that just as one issue seems to sort itself out, another one seems to arise. I long for the day when Rangers have all their defenders fit, but I feel like that will be a full moon and the end is nigh when Rangers eventually have every defender fitting on the park. So disappointing again to lose Suter for a couple of weeks. Hopefully it's not as bad as we fear, and maybe edging towards getting Cornelius and Sterling back to return.
You lose one and all of a sudden it looks a wee bit short, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because you've got also the Cornelius situation. Good that he's back on the training ground, but you're not going to then go and throw him in before he's ready, because you can't afford to take that risk. I think John Suter has been okay this season without being great. As you used to say, could Rangers do better? I think they could, but right now they need bodies and they need people that are reliable. It's been a frustrating spell for John Suter. So as you say, hopefully that's not a longer term one. The manager didn't sound too concerned about it yesterday when I asked him. I think he just said he's missing tonight and Sunday, and he's hoping to have him back on Monday heading into the games next week. So that would be good. Good that Dujon Sterling is back in action as well. But again, you don't want to throw him in too early. So it does leave Rangers a wee bit short. You're looking at Giga coming in tonight, which isn't exactly going to fill people with huge confidence. The manager he's going to play on Sunday as well. So it's not ideal. But like Stevie touched on earlier on, I'd be surprised if Rangers go in and go inside another centre half. I think if you've got Fernandes, who's really come onto a game and has really kind of endeared himself to the fans of late, if you've got him, you can get Suter back and you can get a run of games out of him. That's your two. You've then also got Nsiala in the mix alongside Giga. I'd be surprised if Rangers go and try and add to that unless someone leaves. And one of the potential 4 starters leaves. I think Nsiala could well move on. But I don't see Giga moving on, and there's also no chance of Suter or Fernandes going. So I'd be surprised if Rangers go and strengthen in that area. But it does leave the manager with a bit of a headache for the next couple of games, unfortunately.
Speaking of Emmanuel Fernandes, he was also up at the press conference yesterday. Here's what he had to say. He was talking all about his Champions League ambitions. If I was to ever play Champions League football, I couldn't ask for much more, could I? I feel like it's a dream that every player wants to come true. When discussing his aerial threat in the box this season, I'm a player who can get in the box, and when there's an opportunity to go, I attack it. Scott Fry, obviously, Scott understands what I'm good at. And I must admit, Stevie, he's a player that got a little bit of stick at the beginning of the season. He got a little bit of a hard time because of the transfer fee he commanded, because of the very nature of social media, which can be really toxic at times, that Peterborough fans were not wishing him particularly well, saying that he's not worth the money. And that already tainted a lot of fans' view before he even kicked a ball for Rangers. But I think he's one of the real success stories of this season so far. I think he's really endeared himself to the Rangers fans. I think he seems like a really nice guy in terms of what he does on the park. He's shown his ability in both boxes. He's becoming prolific at one end of the park. And although he does have the old ricket in him in terms of defending, but I think he's still learning his craft a little bit. And I think him in a solid defence paired with a real talkative centre back, an experienced centre back, I really like Emmanuel Fernandes, and I think he's an asset to this team.
A lot to unpack there. What I would say is that I think Russell Martin handled him terribly. I think he created a situation there and he allowed it to run, which didn't need to be. He had a few moments in and out of the team, which Russell helped create. And that narrative quickly built. And then we find out he was injured and we didn't know what was wrong with him. And that is poorly handled by the club and probably by Martin again in press conferences and things. Now, I know you need to look after players, but there's a case of using the outlets that you have that are favourable, like the one that we're on at this moment in time, or my own or whoever, that you could get that message out subtly to the fans and say. So, no, I think Emmanuel Fernandes has been handled very poorly at the start. And now given a run in the team, he's starting to show that, he is quite a confident character. But, there's moments where you watch him and you think, what are you up to? There's a bit of the Marvin Andrews-esque about him. And other times you watch him, he's pretty solid, especially with John Suter. I think him and Suter complement each other well since they've came back, and they were a huge part of that run together. He is definitely a threat. And I do like him. I'm still reserved. I still need to see more of him before I'm convinced that he's a finished article, or I'm convinced that he's a one. Do I think he's got lots of promise, and do I like him? Then yeah, certainly I do.
Of course, Rangers are playing this evening. We've not really touched on it too much. Ludogorets tonight. Chris, I'll just end with your thoughts on that game this evening. It's a momentum game. Want to continue on to keep this winning run going, to keep the good feeling there. And it's also important in terms of the coefficient. There's obviously a lot of discourse this week around Olympiacos and the coefficient points that are up for grabs. And should Rangers go on and win this league title, they want to bag as many coefficient points as possible to keep that direct entry into the Champions League there if they get there.
It's almost a bit what comes first, the chicken or the egg in this scenario, isn't it? I think Danny Rule kind of touched on that yesterday and said, yes, it's important, but if you don't go and win the league, it doesn't make any difference. I think it would be different if Rangers were 10 points clear in the Premiership and winning the league was all but nailed on. Then you say, well, this is now really, really important. But there's a lot of if, buts and maybes in this entire scenario, isn't there? You mentioned Olympiacos there. We need a favour from Ajax next week, ideally. You then, if you don't get that favour, you have to hold up your end of the bargain. If you do that, great. If you don't, you're then keeping an eye on the Greek league table over the coming months to see what happens there. Yes, it's important, but I don't think it's something that Rangers can really be focused too much on right now. There's too many moving parts. They have to go and win the game tonight just to also keep that alive. But I think the win tonight would be more important for me in terms of the feel good factor and that momentum and some of the points that we touched on at the top of the show, just to keep things moving in the right direction. The European campaign's been a bit of a disaster all round, hasn't it? Off to a terrible start. Never looked like being recovered, and even since Danny Rule has come in, it's not really picked up in the way that the domestic form has. So it's an important game tonight, but more so for me in terms of what it can do for the league. A win tonight, you bounce into the weekend, you then go and beat Dundee, and everybody just continues this momentum. So ultimately what will be in terms of the Champions League. It's not something that we just can't really control too much right now. So, but looking forward to seeing how tonight unfolds. As the manager said yesterday, it's going to be a strong team. It doesn't really have the option. So you would imagine if you looked right at the start of the campaign, this is one of the games that you say that should be a Rangers win. Even though the campaign has not gone as we expected, it's still a game I think that you expect Rangers to go and take care of.
Absolutely. And we'll just end on this one. Mark Vogan here saying, any recommendations for Rangers bars in New York City heading out there today? I myself have never been to New York, but I know there is it the Big Apple Bears supporters club that's out there? I don't know if either of you guys have been there. If you can give Mark any recommendations, if any of our viewers can leave any in the comments as well.
Have been to New York. Was only there for a couple of days. Haven't been to the supporters club, unfortunately. But I think that would be his best point to call. I'm sure someone else in the comments will give him a nice recommendation or two.
You ever frequented the Big Apple Bears, Stevie?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, no, I haven't. I went to New York about 10 years ago or something. So I think when I went, we were second division or something like that. So it wasn't an urgent rush to stop my holiday and go and watch us play whoever it was we were playing at that time. I really don't remember. It must have been second. I'm sure it was second division because I went to see New York Rangers play at Madison Square, and they had a defender called Foster, who was hopeless according to everybody around me. And I thought this really does ring true because we currently at that time had a defender also called Foster. So yeah, it was back that time. I do know there is a Rangers bar over there because Andrew Kavanagh was recently spotted having a sip of beer on a European night. So there definitely will be somewhere to watch it, and I'm sure everybody can pitch in and help in the comments, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Rangers community, do your thing. Well, that will do us for this afternoon. A lot of news to get through, a lot of stuff we're not even touched on that I'm sure Chris, I think it's yourself and Johnny will get to tomorrow. But for now, everyone enjoy the game against Ludogorets this evening. We'll be back this evening with all the coverage, pre-match, post-match, and all the way during it as well. But for now, from the morning briefing, thanks for watching and thanks for listening.